What up, what up? It has been a little bit since we have done one of these history reviews, and I'm actually really excited about this one because I have a friend who is from Nepal and he's shared a little bit about his culture. And so for me to be able to learn a little bit about his culture is really awesome. I hope to one day be able to visit his culture and visit Nepal and the place, hopefully, where his family's from, and actually get to explore beyond that. And I think that'd be really, really awesome. I'm looking forward to visiting a lot of places in the future. So until I can get there, learning about them is going to bring me closer to that goal. So we are going to start right now. Be sure if you like the video to like it, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you don't like it, pues, haz lo tuyo. It doesn't matter. This is your opportunity to come on this journey with me. Or if you don't like the stuff, it's okay. To each his own. So with that being said, let's check this out. So basically the entire history is what I'm getting. I already love the patterns. And the bell.
The Federal Democratic country of Nepal has had a very interesting history. Wait. Where did the entire Indian plate go? Oh, it's just down here as a part of the supercontinent Pangaea, and then it collided with the Tibetan Plateau to form the mountains. So
Didn't know
if
that.
you were to meditate by the sea here and wake up a few 100 million years later, you'd be on top of a mountain, or crushed by the plates. Yeah, probably.
Okay. First off, animation was really cool there, and I had no idea about that. So
But within the last 60,000 years, modern humans had already migrated to the Indian subcontinent. Oh look,
okay.
It's a civilization. Its technology is going to find its way here, and so are some people.
Okay. You said that's a civilization. Can I please get a context of what civilization this is? Because I'm very interested.
Some people who lived here were also like, hey, let's go there. And wow, it's a diverse civilization. Maybe someone should govern it. On it said Bhaktaman of the Gopal dynasty, who were originally...
Okay, so 1520 BCE. That's when we're starting here.
Cow herders and followers of Lord Krishna. I mean, quite literally, Krishna came to Nepal to defeat a demon and they just followed him here. And they probably also built a Pashupati temple located in the Kathmandu Valley. According to the Swami Puran, the valley was a pond and a bodhisattva by the name of Manjushri just sliced a gorge of a hill at Chobar and drained the water, and out came a habitable land with fertile...
First off, sounds like a badass. You can just cut a mountain out and just let the water drain.
Soil. The Gopal dynasty survived for over 500 years with just 8 rulers and were overthrown by the Mahishpals, who were also buffalo. Okay, first,
the Mahishpals, no disrespect or nothing, but this guy don't look too tough. The other guy looked a lot tougher, man. What's going on here?
Their achievements include being overthrown by the Kirats. But wait, who's that? A prince? Perry the prince? No, it's actually Siddhartha Gautam.
I like the other hat better, by the way, not that little fedora he put on him.
Who would later be known as Gautam Buddha, the founder of Buddhism and the light of Asia. Oh, and back here, the 7th Kirat king, Goli, is now mentioned in the Mahabharata, but then Yalambar, the 1st Kirat king, is also considered...
Okay, what's this guy's name? Yalamber? Yalamber, the 1st Kirat king? Is that Barbarica? The man could finish an entire war in a minute. Okay, first off, that's some badass stuff right there. I want to write this down. Lambar. So I know I probably shouldn't be doing this right now while we're on stream, but I want to look into this guy because first off, the image that they portrayed looks really cool, and 2, you can stop a war in a minute. I want to know how.
To be a portrayal of Barbaric, who's in the same war, so plot holes, I guess. But one thing is for sure, Kirats were very brave and fierce fighters. But
the Kirats
enough to win against the Soma dynasty, who
check it out,
and then themselves were overthrown by the Lichavi dynasty. Oh wait, what's that? The golden age of Nepal? We'll take it. King Mandev, the first Lichavi king, introduced coins. Land measurements were introduced. They rebuilt the Pashupati temple along with many other temples. Foreign relations were...
Okay, so Manandef is the guy responsible for this right now.
thriving, especially art trade with Tibet, and they were succeeded by the Thakuris in 816 AD. The Thakuri king Gunakamadev had the temple of Kathmandu built from a single tree. This is where the city of Kathmandu gets its name. He also started Indrachatra. Legend has it that god Indra, the lord of heavens, came down to earth disguised as a farmer to pluck some jasmines for his mother goddess Aditi, but was tied down by the locals who accused him.
Okay, I just saw this guy in the Minecraft movie. All right, just saw him, and look at these dudes just pull up. I knew there was something weird about him.
Of stealing the flowers. Only 8 days later, when his mother comes down looking for him and explains everything to the farmers, he reveals his true identity and they let him go. The 8 days of Indra being here was celebrated as a festival.
Okay, get down. All right, all right. Okay.
Now, after a while, the Thakuri kings decided to play a game of catch. First, the Rajput Thakuris lost their kingdom to Nuwakot Thakuris, but the Nuwakot Thakuris again lost their kingdom to the Rajput Thakuris, and
Oh, so they're okay. I get what he's saying now. Back and forth.
Brought in another bright age. That is, if you're willing to overlook the 1255 earthquake that killed a third of the population, including King Abhay.
Oh, holy shit.
The 1505 earthquake of 8.9 magnitude, the Kathmandu invasion by Sultan Samsuddin Ilyas, and the implementation of the discriminatory caste system. Well, at least the architecture was amazing. The trade of art between Nepal and Tibet was also flourishing, and to the west was a really big kingdom named Khas. Wow, such a big kingdom, you might say. But then it broke off into not just a few kingdoms, but into 22 and 24 kingdoms.
That would cause true stress to any system to be broken down from one big kingdom into that many kingdoms.
Wow, the West is really dividing. I hope that doesn't happen to us. Jayasthitimal was the king who spent all his efforts trying to reunite all the towns under a single rule, only for his successors to undo all of it. The kings of these three kingdoms especially were not happy with each.
First off, that kind of looks like a person with a beard. I'm just seeing right here, right? I'm seeing it's right here. I'm seeing a dude's beard right here. So interesting.
They constantly
looks like a king itself.
Proves that the architecture of their city was better. Wow.
Okay, so that seems like that would cause a lot of innovation, right? If these three places are trying to just outdo each other with architecture. So I'm assuming very, very beautiful architecture was done within these three places.
The West is really dividing. I hope that doesn't happen to us. If you look at this map and go, there are so many tiny kingdoms. I wish someone just came along and annexed them into a single kingdom. Well, I have just the guy for you. Let me tell you about Prithvi Narayan Shah of Gorkha. From a young age,
Prithvi Narayan Shah.
And was like, we must unify and form a true Hindu kingdom.
All right. I'm going to have Views actually pop this up. And the animations are fire. Views pop this up. I actually have a sweet mustache to compete with this guy's mustache. Not currently today, but I'm going to pull it up, man. You guys can see for yourselves.
Under my rule. I am intrigued. Tell me more, you say. He started his annexation campaign in 1743 by invading Nuwakot so that he could invade Nepal Mandal next. His father
There's the king there.
Nuwakot once but failed, so when he tried to invade Nuwakot, he also failed. Like father, like son. But
first off, super hilarious having the hearts and losing the hearts. Very video game like. Love it. I'm really liking this guy's stuff so far.
1744, under the new command,
speaks a little fast, but it's okay.
The hilltop of Nuwakot with an upgraded army and defeated them. While Gorkha was busy invading Nuwakot, the king of Tanahu had a brilliant idea of invading Gorkha. But then he lost and was captured by Prithvi Narayan Shah, who annexed his entire kingdom. So yeah, that one kind of backfired. In 1757, Prithvi Narayan Shah finally attacked Kirtipur and suffered heavy losses.
Got the ass whooped by the king state.
Went from being a commander to being a late commander. When Prithvi Narayan Shah had to disguise himself.
Yo, my man said fly high. That's some funny shit. Okay, so right here, I'm telling. So far, I'm seeing this place is very special. It's making it very difficult to conquer. I wonder particularly what made it so difficult to conquer. Was it terrain? Was it just the way the way the people were, you know what I mean? Were they warriors? What made it so difficult? What made it so that this gigantic landmass couldn't conquer this right here? You know, because obviously, usually you got that much land, you got a lot of people with it. That's not always the case, but potentially.
as a saint to escape.
Oh, it's about to
now
get dark.
He decided to take
Makwanpur and other
Okay.
principalities that surrounded the valley from all the other directions.
before attacking the valley.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. This is a way that I see for him to starve these guys out, right? So if you can't conquer this particular area, you go all the way around it and you make sure you cut off all the resources. If I'm not mistaken, Sun Tzu's The Art of War explains how this is a way to conquer a place. So very interesting.
He defeated Makwanpur in 1762 and then he cut off all the trade routes in an attempt to starve the population. But despite the blockade, when he attacked Kirtipur for the second time, he again lost.
He lost.
On
It's
the
like
third attempt,
pathetic. That's terrible.
1767, a nobleman of Lalitpur betrayed his own kingdom by letting the Gorkhalis into the town.
Ah.
Noble of him, was it? And then Prithvi Narayan Shah finally took over Kirtipur, after which he cut off the noses of the civilians. Dozens of thousands of people had already died from the blockade, so by the time Prithvi Narayan Shah attacked Kathmandu, the nobleman there had already switched to his side, so he conquered the city of Kathmandu as well. The king of Kathmandu fled to Lalitpur for refuge, and Prithvi Narayan Shah soon followed, and after they were threatened to have their noses cut off, Lalitpur surrendered, and both the kings of Kathmandu and Lalitpur fled.
That's got to be like the most painful thing, to have these guys looking, cut somebody's nose off, have them looking like the zombie guy from Fallout. That's not cool, man.
To Bhaktapur, after which Prithvi Narayan Shah also soon followed and attacked Bhaktapur.
Now that I think about it, it may seem like Prithvi Narayan Shah had a nose fetish.
I was thinking the same thing, not gonna lie.
I mean, losing a nose was just a sign of shame. And even if he did, we wouldn't judge him for having a fetish. Oh wait, no, furries exist, right?
Three Shah kings of
Yo,
Kathmandu
fam, I don't want to touch that subject, but all I gotta say is this guy's funny.
stood against Prithvi Narayan Shah for a final battle, but betrayed by its nobles. Bhaktapur too fell. This marked the fall of the Shahas.
Okay, all right, so the
Just
Shahs
before,
fell.
The king of Kathmandu was shot. Tej Singh Malla, the king of Lalitpur, was chained to death, but King Ranajit Malla of Bhaktapur was allowed to flee because he was old. So turns out there are benefits of being old. This was the newly formed kingdom of Nepal. Even though
Got
it
it.
took a while to adopt that name, few etymologies of the word Nepal are as follows. It could have been derived from the Newari word Nepal, which was their name for Kathmandu. The people of Gopal dynasty were also called Nepal. The word Nepala in Sanskrit means at the foot of the mountain, so maybe it originated from there. There's also a myth about Prithvi Narayan Shah that when he was on his way to Kathmandu, he came across an old sage and he gave the sage some curd to eat. The
Okay.
old sage ate it and then regurgitated it back on Prithvi Narayan Shah's hand.
Sounds gross.
Prithvi Narayan Shah was like, oops, and then threw it away and it landed on his feet, which apparently he was supposed to eat. I mean, who in their right mind would just unhesitantly devour someone else's projectile vomit that
I feel like a joke's coming, but sounds super gross. How about we just stick with the people of the bottom of the mountain?
landed on your hand?
But I also wouldn't want to underestimate the idiocy of few creeps on the internet who would call it that delightful breakfast.
That's disgusting.
Well, the point is, Prithvi Narayan Shah threw it away, and the sage then explained that if he had eaten the curd, his wishes would have come true, but now that he threw it away with pride and it landed on 10 of his toes, after 10 generations, his dynasty would fall.
If that comes true, that's kind of creepy.
Shah then annexed the Kirat kingdom Chaudandi to Nepal before dying at the age of 52. And
He was
when
young.
died, as per ritual, all 4 of his wives had to commit sati by sacrificing themselves by jumping onto the fire of his burning body. Just a reminder that it took us until 1920 to ban sati in Nepal.
That seems super, super, super intense. You must have been very passionate for your husband, or very loyal to, to having honor. But yeah, Doug, you going down, man. I ain't going into that fire for you, homie.
So, yeah. Prithvinarayan Shah's eldest son became the king and soon died of smallpox. The throne was
That
then
sucks.
passed on to his 2-year-old son Rana Bahadur Shah, whose mother governed the country as a regent. Now his uncle Bahadur Shah and his mother Rajendra Lakshmi, along with having a sweet beef with each other, also extended the unification campaign by annexing other Chaudhry and Baisi kingdoms. And Prithvinarayan Shah was a forward thinker, but
Okay.
apparently not forward enough to figure out that the Kathmandu Valley blockade during his unification campaign would cause a domino effect that might just have been the root cause of a war with Tibet. You see, Nepal Mandal provided Tibet with its silver coins, but because of the blockade, the quality of silver coins went down significantly. Tibetans obviously were not happy with this treachery, so Nepal and Tibet were no longer besties. They wanted Nepal to replace the impure coins with pure ones, which Nepal, being a new nation, still invading other smaller nations, just couldn't afford.
Makes
So you know
sense.
what they did? They went to war. Twice. The
One.
first Nepal-Tibet War was caused over the dispute of the silver coins, which Nepal won and they signed the Treaty of Kirung.
Okay.
Then the second war was caused by the dissatisfaction over the Treaty of Kirung itself, among other factors.
And this time, due to the involvement of Chinese Qing dynasty, Nepal lost.
Oh,
Qing dynasty made Tibet compensate the Nepalese merchants that they had invaded, and they also got Nepal to pay tribute to them, in return for which they would help Nepal defend against any external aggression. Guess how that went? The 2-year-old king Rana Bahadur Shah soon grew up and jailed his own uncle Bahadur Shah till death, and he also married a total of 4 times. One of his wives was Kantavati Shah, a Maithili Brahmin widow, who he had married in the condition that he would make their son the heir, disregarding the ones older than him. And due to the difference in their caste, their son would be half-caste, and a half-caste as their king was already a big no-no for the people at the time. So after they had their son Girwan, he abdicated the throne for their 1-year-old son with his first wife Rajrajeshwari.
Oh, he's causing some bullshit, bro.
Peace out and became a saint with his favorite wife Kantavi Chand. He was living his life with his wife, but then she soon died of smallpox, after which Rana Bahadur's sanity also said peace out and took a hiatus. He then unsuccessfully tried to re-establish his power as a royal, but was forced to exile to Varanasi with his first wife Rajrajeshwari and his bodyguard Bhimsen Thapa, among few others.
So in the end of the day, the ex-wife was the one that got the last laugh. Excuse me. That is actually really funny. And that sucks.
Second wife, Subarna Prabha, acted as the regent back in the capital. Bahadur
Okay.
Shah lived like a wealthy ex-king in
Don't know why I don't like this picture. One, the man has breasts. 2, it looks like he's got an owl on his chest right now, kind of looking at me funny, or somebody who's a little too bright-eyed. Potentially looks like the dude from the Trailer Park Boys, like those round circles, man, look like the Trailer Park Boy glasses. I don't know, man. Like that Bubbles guy, it ain't right.
Varanasi, except that he was not wealthy and put Nepal in a huge debt to the British. Rajrajeshwari, fed up with her husband, left him to go back to Nepal, where she soon regained her authority as a regent. The 2 wives of Rana Bahadur Shah were the 2 acting authorities, and also had a sweet beef between them.
Oh shit, let's get this rap battle going.
Victorious, after which the British broke their ties with Nepal, allowing Rana Bahadur Shah to return and exert his authority. Even though Rana Bahadur came back, his sanity,
my man's lucky his wife even took him back at that point, but I'm assuming it's a different time, so.
he never did. After gaining substantial power, he started plotting against everyone who had sided against him.
Makes sense.
Mulkaji Damodar Pandey, execute him. Mulkaji Damodar Pandey's 2 sons, execute him as well. But your highness, they're innocent. I said execute them.
Okay, so that process seems super barbaric, but at the same time, it's kind of understandable in the position of you kill one of mine, eventually I'm going to come back and get you. And so I'm assuming that in those times, they were just trying to make sure that that didn't happen. That's probably why they wiped out these lineages, so that that couldn't happen. It's just like I guess like some extra insurance. Pretty crappy, but extra insurance is what it seems like.
He went as far as to exiling smallpox-affected citizens out of Kathmandu to not let
It
King Girvan
kind of makes sense.
during the smallpox outbreak.
To say Rana Bahadur Shah's decision-making skills were questionable would be an understatement. He would go on to make another tiny bit of mistake of threatening to execute his own half-brother, Sher Bahadur Shah, who then stabbed him to death, and then himself got killed by a man named Bal Narsingh Kaur. The death
Hey,
of
who's
Rana
this guy?
Bahadur Shah caused Bhimsen Thapa to plot a massacre. He had all the members of Sher Bahadur's faction killed. He also
Told
killed
you.
his own potential threats and left their bodies at the bank of Bishnumati River, denied of any funeral rituals.
Okay, so that seems super disrespectful to deny people of funeral rituals, but my man was letting them know that he was the guy.
This would be known as the Bhandarkal Massacre of 1806. This left the country in the hands of a 7-year-old King Girwan and a 14-year-old Queen Mother Tripura Sundari, which meant the actual person in charge was Bhimsen Thapa, who declared himself the Muktiya. He also annexed Garhwal into Nepal, and this was the Kingdom of Nepal,
Okay.
at its greatest of size. But our misfortunes had only just begun, and
Oh,
it came in
okay.
the same form as it did for countless other countries in the world, the British. Because it's not the late modern period of human history if Britain hasn't paid you a
Colonial visit.
By the
It's actually
1800s,
funny.
the British East India Company had a hold of significant portion of the Indian subcontinent. They were planning to expand to be able to trade with Tibet, but there was just this one little country in between separating them, who also wouldn't open its trade routes for East India Company in fear of forced conversion to Christianity. And they also had border dispute with Nepal. You know what?
That makes sense, right? You want to hold true to your values, and you obviously see these people are coming with colonialism. So if you don't want to do that, you just don't open your routes. Makes sense.
That means it's wartime, baby. On this side of
Okay.
the border, we have the newly formed country of Nepal, which
Oh, I love this.
couldn't gather any help and is struggling to keep itself afloat with an army of 11,000 people, including men, women, armed with limited guns, kukris, and stones. And on the other side, we have East India Company representing
The British Empire.
Yep,
armed
that
with
was going to be tough to.
160 cannons. At first, the British would attack on 4 fronts. Major Marley with his 12,000 men and Major Wood with his 4,500 men would attack Makwan.
Very subtle joke in that they're not matching up, man, for the time period, but they're just two guys who potentially look British. That's pretty funny. Pretty solid joke.
Trithgard respectively, and both would retreat. So the war properly starts at Nalapani. General Gillespie with his 5,000 men attacked the Nalapani fort twice, which stationed 600 people under the command of Captain Balabhadra Kumar. Despite the power difference,
See what this
did not
captain can
take
do.
the fort, and General Gillespie died in the first attack. So they changed their approach. They cut off the water supply of the Nepali soldiers.
And there it is again. You see, now you're cutting off supplies, right? Which is what I was saying. Once you cut off those resources, you make things very difficult in war.
And on the third day of the supply being cut, Balabhadra and remaining 70 of his soldiers
Withdrew and emptied the palace.
at Jaitak, Major Richard and Major Ludlow would attack from the north and the south, respectively, with a total of about 1,700 men. But they would soon retreat after losing about 300 men in just a single attack. They also cut off the water supply, but the Nepalese soldiers under the command of Ranajor Singh Thapa still held Jaitak. After the British attacked Almora in April of 1850, Bamshah, the governor of Kumaon province, surrendered. This cut off the communication of Malau and Jaitak from the main.
Got it. So this is starting to separate Nepal again.
6,000 men attacked Malau. The Nepalese were overwhelmed by the British numbers, and Kaji Amar Singh Thapa reluctantly surrendered for himself and Rana Jor Singh Thapa. After losing Kumaon and Garhwal, the British gave Nepal a 15-day ultimatum to ratify a treaty. Nepal failed to do so, and the British moved on with their second campaign.
So you know what that means? It's time for round 2.
This time, it would happen near the heart of the country. Colonel Kelly
Okay.
and Colonel O'Hara attacked from different directions and
This guy's choosing the
pushed
worst
Nepalese
pictures,
back to
man.
Sindaliguri. The British did not attack further, and both parties agreed on a treaty. According to the Sogoli Treaty, Nepal would lose the plains lying between Kali and Rapti River, all open areas lying between Rapti and Gandaki River except Butwa, the Taral
Okay.
between Koshi and Gandaki rivers, plain lands stretching between Tista and Mechi, and all the territories east of Mechi and west of Mahakali.
like
It was
everything.
owed to these
That's what it seems
mighty,
like.
brave warriors who fought for the sovereignty of our country that Nepal, though smaller, still stood independently.
Let's go.
Back in
As viewers would
Kathmandu,
say,
the
lock in.
announcement of the then dead Rana Bahadur Shah, who had exiled civilians out of the valley during the smallpox outbreak to prevent his son from contaminating it, his son, King Girvan, at the age of 19, died of smallpox. Everything comes back full circle.
Yo, the fact that the dude's explaining that, but he's kind of giggling, it makes me feel bad because like I want to laugh at the fact that he's giggling, but it's like, yo, bro, I feel bad that the dude even died of smallpox, man.
He was succeeded by his son Rajendra Bikram Shah, who jailed Bhimsen Thapa, accusing him of poisoning his infant son and killing his father, King Girvan.
Okay, so this guy
While
got it.
being imprisoned, he heard a rumor about how his wife would be stripped naked and paraded through Kathmandu. Unable to bear the humiliation, Bhimsen Thapa, one of the most well-known national figures of Nepalese history, slit his own throat.
You gotta
But then he
be
didn't
overcome
die.
with grief.
He failed to
Oh,
kill himself, so King Rajendra dragged Bhimsen
that sucks.
Thapa's almost lifeless bloody body throughout the streets of Kathmandu and then dumped it on the bank of Bishnumati River, denied of any funeral rituals, the same way Bhimsen Thapa had dealt with the bodies of the people he had killed in the Bhandarkal massacre of 1806.
That seems fair.
Except for Bhimsen Thapa's nephew, Mathavar Singh Thapa, who had fled to India, all the other Thapas were arrested and...
Alright, I'll wait for it.
Among them was Jang Bahadur Rana, the son of Balnar Singh Kunwar. Jang Bahadur's mother was a close relative of Bhimsen Thapa, so when he and his father lost their jobs, he for a part of his life went to Varanasi to find a job.
Okay.
And when Jang Bahadur returned from Banaras, both his wife and son were dead.
Dang.
Just a chance encounter, and his whole life was about to change for great. Jang Bahadur just so happened to accompany King Rajendra on his trip to Tarai, where the king, impressed by his bravery, made him a captain.
Okay.
And there he became a bodyguard to the crown prince, then the king's bodyguard, and then a Kaji. Unfortunately, Jang Bahadur's cousin had been sentenced to death. Fortunately, the prime minister was Jang Bahadur's uncle, Mathavar Singh Thapa, the very nephew of Bhimsen Thapa, who had fled to Banaras, but was later called back into the country and made the prime minister by Queen Rajalakshmi. She had done all...
Yeah, she looks like Queen Rajalakshmi.
...support her son's claim to the throne rather than the crown...
Forgive me for saying it wrong.
So Jang Bahadur asked for the prime minister to convince the queen to pardon his cousin from the death sentence, but the prime minister denied.
Uh-oh, here comes the beef.
Another very sweet.
Yep.
Sadly, Prime Minister Mathabar then didn't support the queen's son over the crown prince Surendra, so she had Jang Bahadur kill his own uncle. Oh, such a close, loving family. This was the court massacre where Jang Bahadur and his brother shot the prime minister.
Royal
and
last
40
name.
other
It's
members
almost
of the
feared.
court.
Got it.
The queen then made Jang Bahadur the prime minister and asked him to make her son the heir to the throne. But surprise, surprise, Jang Bahadur doesn't support your son either. Poor woman. So this caused another delicious beef, so she tried to have him killed, but he found out about it and he went and killed a whole bunch of her co-conspirators and had her imprisoned, exiled the king, and made the crown prince Surendra the king. But only in name Surendra was a king. Jang Bahadur was the actual ruler, and now that Jang Bahadur was the ruler, he could no longer be bullied by the king into jumping from the most absurd places ever. He gave himself the title of Sri Teen, helped the British out during the Indian Mutiny, was rewarded with the return of some portion of the land, and went to war with Tibet for the third time.
Oh, wow.
This crippling autocratic Rana regime started by Jang Bahadur.
I want to know a little bit more about the head attire and why they chose to adorn their uniforms with that attire. But obviously, this is the big guy because he's the only one wearing those pants.
The dark ages of Nepal. It is to be blamed
And he's in the
for
center.
Nepal's development in the current status. Ranas allied with the British, providing them with hundreds of thousands of Gurkhalis during both the world wars. In the First World War, Nepal sent Britain a grand sum of £1 million to help them out, and in the Second World War, declared war against Germany in favor of Britain, sending over 100,000 soldiers to fight for the Allied forces.
and Gorkhalis earned a considerable reputation as warriors. The
Okay.
Mulki Ain was also established with stated laws such as follows. The fifth point reads, if a person from an untouchable caste farts in the mouth of someone of a higher caste, they are to be fined 20 rupees.
Bro, this dude found the worst law to joke about, bro. All right.
And now I suddenly have an urge to go back in time and give them all 20 rupees. There are a few sections similar to this. The section
My
preceding
gosh.
this is about human excreta, and the section following this is about spitting and how the penalty for spitting differs based on the person who spits and who spat.
It's
on.
weird views. Like, honestly, it's very
You can
weird.
read it further, and this just goes on to show that Ranas had all the time in the world to make this, but not to open a school. No wonder they're called the Dark Ages. The autocratic Ranas feared that if their citizens went to school, they might just gain brain cells and learn to think for themselves.
Okay. So again, this is something that you see throughout history, right? The Romans did stuff like this where they kind of destroy people's abilities to learn, so that way when you destroy somebody's ability to learn, you keep them kind of stupid. And when you keep them stupid, in a generation or two, you'll have them believing in whatever you guys decide, whatever narrative you decide to push. So not an uncommon practice. Kind of makes sense why they would do it, even though it's a shit move.
So for the most part, only Ranas were allowed to go to a school. What happens if you speak against the Ranas, you ask? They exile you from life. When the British left, they refused to propose the idea of giving back our lost land. But then a movement came that turned countless patriots into martyrs and Nepal into a parliamentary democratic country. After 104 years, the Rana regime was finally overthrown. The parliamentary democracy established in 1950.
Yo, my man right here, he's looking like he's about to drop the hottest album I've ever seen, bro. All right, the rest of the guys, this dude right here looked like he killed a few people, though. I'm just saying, like look at the way those knees sag right there. You know what I mean? It ain't easy being that short in life. I'm right there with you, player. I just want to let you know, this dude right here's got a military uniform. I'm the only one. A picture could say 1,000 words, right? But this dude right here, man, I'm telling you.
Would not last, because in 1960, King Mohindra would establish a suppressive monarchy called the Panchayat system.
The Panchayat system.
The Panchayat was abolished for a constitutional monarchy, but the Communist Party wanted a people's republic and not just a constitutional monarchy.
Makes
So
sense.
they started a civil war that lapsed over 10 years that caused over 20,000 people to be dead or missing.
That really
And
sucks.
say what you will about our monarchs, at least they were not
Like the glasses.
cousins. Oh, okay.
Oh, that was a dig. Okay, so when he said that, that's a huge dig at the British. Kind of funny, because you know he kind of mentioned that the British kind of ruined everything. So he took a dig. I'm not saying it's funny because of the content of it or whatever, but just from where this guy's coming from.
Time in 2001, King Birendra was married to his wife Queen Aishwarya. She was hailed as a fashion icon. Her alleged affair with the legendary folk singer Narayan Gopal may have even inspired a few classics, but her objection to her son Crown Prince Dipendra marrying his woman of choice caused the Crown Prince to commit the royal massacre. On the night of June 1, 2001, in Narayan Hitti Palace, the much-beloved Crown Prince Dipendra opened-fired at his father King Birendra, mother Aishwarya, and 7 other royal members. And
they really pissed him off, man. Like, so he offed everybody, and then he offed himself, is what I'm understanding so far. You should have probably just let him marry who he wanted at this point. That's sad, dudes. That's sad.
Then himself. He would survive in coma for 3 days, during which he would be crowned the king due to the lack of other royal members.
Wait a second. So the dude smokes his whole family and still becomes the king, even though he's kind of like in a coma state. That's wild.
Give the title to, making him one of the shortest reigning monarchs ever. But this is not entirely true. This story is speculated to be just one of the many theories as to what caused the royal massacre of 2001.
Okay.
In 2006, Nepal would finally
That's
be
wild,
a people's
dude.
republic and the monarchy would fall. The Shah dynasty would fall 10 generations after the reign of Prithvi Narayan.
just like that the person said who decided to vomit on him. So yeah, still not eating it, bro.
Other dynasties, such as the dynasty of Lo, ruling the extremely well-preserved marvelous city Lumantang, also were no longer the official rulers of their region. And since it gained democracy, the only thing any citizen ever seemed to want was to have a permanent constitution. And in 2000,
that makes sense for safety and protection reasons. So like, you know, if you're starting a democracy and you don't want it to ever go back to a monarchy, right? Like you want to make sure you have laws established into place and you have something that you can follow. So that totally makes sense for the people of Nepal.
15, only after 2 years of Bhimnirola releasing his global sensational hit Sunday Morning Love You, Nepal had a permanent constitution.
Okay.
I mean, we can only assume Bhimnirola had something.
Okay. So this picture shows the influence of the demographic in the area. This gentleman looks more Indian. This gentleman looks like probably more African, and this little guy over here, or this gentleman right here, looks more like Asian from like China. So I'm interested to see what people of Nepal look like.
To do with it. That very year, Nepal also became a federal country, you know, because Nepal is a country lapsing over such a huge area with a sizable economy that we just had to have 7 states. Since 2008, we have had 13 prime ministers, with the recent one having re-elected 4 times. By the time you watch this video, there might just be a new prime minister. The Nepalese people fought over hundreds of years of instability just to have even more instability. This is a heart-wrenching story about a once ambitious country that's now turned into a medium for politicians to feed on donations, a mere pawn in international politics.
Yeah, it happens in our country as well.
Have a happy ending. Our history is poorly recorded in our ancient artifacts, which if you want to check out, you can head over to the
That's a bummer.
of the British museums and other Western museums. Thank you for watching this video.
All right, so very insightful. The guy moved fast because he was given a lot of information. There was so much there to unpack, so much stuff that I didn't know. I'd like to be able to slow things down a little bit so that I can learn how to pronunciate the names properly, so I'm not disrespecting anybody's culture. But yeah, this is really good stuff. I really enjoyed learning about it. Maybe I'll have the ability to see a few more of this guy's videos. I definitely liked how he used some video game elements, you know, to be able to convey his message. The thing with the king and everything, and the prince who smoked everybody, that's really, really dark. But, you know, it's a part of the history. And so in order for it not to repeat itself, you got to learn the history. So with that being said, muchas gracias. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. I got five people watching right now, which is really cool. I'm assuming we'll get many, many more on the VOD. So thank you, guys. Have a wonderful evening, and later.